Hey group, good afternoon. So this is the second part of our class. So we went over politics and science and the difference there. But again, the main focus of the class is that there's something called climate change that a lot of people are confused about. It's in the news quite a bit, and it's important for us to know, what it is. And so I'm going to go over it. And I've also, throughout my time, I've taken, pardon me. Anyway, but throughout my time, I've taken a lot of classes on environmental science and things like that. So I'll have my own little tidbits. But, it's important for people to know what climate change is. A lot of people kind of got confused, I think, when it came to global warming. And that became a phrase, and places were still cold, and so people were like, well, global warming isn't a thing. It is a thing, but it's under the umbrella of climate change, because there's also global freezing in certain places. There's certain colds that are happening, like the weather gets so cold that the ground freezes that it's never done that before. But that's because of climate. So we're going to go over what climate change is and the importance of knowing what climate change is, especially as it comes to the future for people's children, your future for generations beyond generations that are going to enter a world where climate change is a real issue. And in California, we've experienced it. Even Gavin Newsom has come out with some changes. I mean, I don't know if they're going to work, but, to really cut down carbon emissions when it comes to vehicles and trying to get past gas-powered vehicles, because gasoline and oil is a limited resource. It will run out. It's not going to last forever. Whereas, say, the sun or wind or water, these are things that will be a constant for at least now. So, to utilize that is important. So, we're going to go over just kind of the basics of what climate change is. And, just kind of get our feet wet and move on from there. So, here we go. So, what is climate change? And it says the short answer, climate change describes a change in the average conditions, such as temperature and rainfall in a region over a long period of time, which is why we went over science, the difference between science and politics, over a long period of time. NASA scientists have observed Earth's surface is warming, and many of the warmest years on record have happened in the past 20 years. So again, that is where global warming comes from. But let's talk about the difference between, say, weather and climate. So what the weather does, so if you look at this little graph here, this is the weather for a day. Now this is climate change. So what weather does is it describes the conditions outside right now in a specific place. So for example, if you see that it's raining outside right now, that's a way to describe today's weather. Rain, snow, wind, hurricanes, tornadoes, these are all weather events. So that's what the weather is. You go out and you're like, oh, it's really hot today, or the sun didn't come out today. Well, that's the weather, depending on what's going on. And you can readily see it. But you can also kind of predict it. I mean, that's why they have, meteorologists who actually try to predict the weather. Now, so that's weather. It's just, that's what's outside right now here. here in California, in Contra Costa County, in Richmond, where I am right now, the weather, it's sunny and it's nice outside. But that's the weather here. Now, in other places in the world, the weather is going to be much different. And, because it's localized to each different region. What's going on in the Arctic is going to be much different than what's going on here. Or what's even happening in Death Valley is going to be much different than here. It's going to be really hot there. The weather there is going to be very different because of the region and where we are. Now, climate is a different thing. So weather, localized, you can see it. People have forecasts for it. But climate, on the other hand, is more than just 1 or 2 rainy days. Climate describes the weather conditions that are expected in a region at a particular time of year. Is it usually raining or usually dry? Is it typically hot or typically cold? A region's climate is determined by observing its weather over a period of many years, generally 30 or more years. So that's how climatologists, they actually study the weather. It happens over a long period of time. So, for example, 1 or 2 weeks of rainy weather wouldn't change the fact that Phoenix typically has a dry desert climate, or like Death Valley, as I was saying. Even though it's rainy right now, we still expect Phoenix to be dry because that is what is usually the case. So, what is climate change then? So, you have a climate and people are like, okay, it's pretty predictable. Like, this is what the weather is usually and has been like. Again, they say, after being studied for this amount of time, this is how it usually is. And then you also have like climatological disasters like the Dust Bowl and things like that and people didn't expect it. But again, if we had studied the weather even more and the climate even more, we would see. So what is climate change? So we have the weather, which is localized. We have climate, which we're like, well, we can pretty much predict that. So climate change, so this is a picture of Alaska. And a Muir Glacier in August of 1941 and August of 2004. And you can see major changes. Yes. So climate change describes a change in the average conditions, such as temperature and rainfall, in a region over a long period of time. For example, 20,000 years ago, much of the United States was covered in glaciers. In the United States today, we have a warmer climate and fewer glaciers. Global climate change refers to the average long-term changes over the entire Earth. These include warming temperatures and changes in precipitation, as well as the effects of Earth's warming, such as rising sea levels, which happen because of the glaciers melting, shrinking mountain glaciers, ice melting at a faster rate than usual in Greenland, Antarctica, and the Arctic, and changes in flower and plant blooming times. So, the climate of the Earth has been constantly changing. Even before humans came into the picture, it has been changing over a long period of time, and it will continue to change, no matter what. But we all impact it. The world and what's going on in the world impacts the climate and how it's going to change. If it's going to get hotter, if it's going to get colder, if sea levels are going to rise, things like that. That will all be part of it. And next is, how much is Earth's climate changing right now? And that's the next question. So, we have this. This is the annual global temperature change. So, and you can see from this, and you can always pause the video, but the rising levels from the 1880s to the 1940s, which we had a spike there, to the 2000s. So some parts of the Earth are warming faster than others. But on average, global air temperatures near the Earth's surface have gone up about 2 degrees Fahrenheit in the past 100 years. In fact, the past 5 years have been the warmest 5 years in centuries. So many people, including scientists, are concerned about this warming. As Earth's climate continues to warm, the intensity and amount of rainfall during storms such as hurricanes is expected to increase. Droughts and heat waves are also expected to become more intense as the climate warms. So what it's saying basically is that the weather that we're seeing right now, all the hurricanes and things like that we're seeing, is because the climate is changing, and it changes the way the Earth is going to react. It's like we have droughts right now in California. We used to get a lot more rain than we do now, but we don't get it as much. And it's because of a warming here. Again, it's different everywhere, but there is a warming here, and the warming that happens in California is why we have the wildfires and things like that. It's part of the reason. But then there's also, I think, Michael kind of studies the weather. He does things like that, and he was talking about how, we had all those lightning strikes, which actually caused this. But it's also the warming, once things, if we don't have water, things are going to dry out here. And then if you have on top of that lightning strikes hitting this dry, and lightning is electricity, which starts fire, and then you're going to have these thrushes of wildfires, and it's going to make seasons worse and harder to deal with, and there's no way to get more rain. The only thing we can really do is make sure that we're trying to be as safe as possible. But the climate, as long as it's warming, the drier it's going to get in California. The drier it's going to get in a lot of parts of the world. But also, the world kind of fights back. And like I said, there's also global freezing in certain places. So it's interesting. So when the whole Earth's temperature changes by 1 or 2 degrees, that change can have big impacts on the health of Earth's plants and animals too. So what causes climate change? So we're going to look at this. It's the last page. And again, this is just an introduction. I'm going to do other classes on this because it's very important that we know what we can do and also what it means, for the future for everyone. So the greenhouse effect. That, what causes climate change? Well, the greenhouse effect. And we have a greenhouse. So let's go over this and see how it actually figures into the greenhouse that we already have. So there are lots of factors that contribute to the Earth's climate. However, scientists agree that the Earth has been getting warmer in the past 50 to 100 years due to human activities, which is us. Certain gases in the Earth's atmosphere block heat from escaping. And this is called the greenhouse effect. These gases keep Earth warm, like the glass in a greenhouse keep plants warm. So it's the same sort of thing. That's, like if you think of our little greenhouse that we have a program. That's why every day when I would go there, I was really happy we got one where you could open up the roof and let gases out. You could let heat out. Because if you leave everything in there, everything is going to wilt. Like if you don't actually let out any of the heat that's in there, plants aren't going to survive very well. But I mean, and the good thing about it is during the winter months, you keep it closed as much as possible, and then when the sun hits, it actually keeps it warm in there, which is good. But the greenhouse effect for the Earth is much different. Is that these gases don't have that lid to open up, and it used to, take all this heat, all these greenhouse gases, and push them out of the Earth. Right now, they're all trapped there, and we're just like this. We're a globe that's just getting warmer and warmer and warmer because this heat can actually get out. And it does produce rain and things like that sometimes, but at the same time, the more, and again, this is a long period of time, as we went over with the science, but the longer this persists, the harder it is to have humans and the Earth be manageable together. So, human activities such as burning fuel to power factories, cars, and buses are changing the natural greenhouse. These changes cause the atmosphere to trap more heat than it used to, leading to a warmer Earth. And does what we do matter? Is the next question. And the answer is yes, obviously. Yes, when human activities create greenhouse gases, Earth warms. This matters because oceans, lands, air, plants, animals, and energy from the sun all have an effect on one another. The combined effects of all these things give us our global climate. In other words, Earth's climate functions like one big connected system. And all that's saying is that it used to be a lot more local, or even just country to country. But now we're living in a global climate to where everything everyone does affects the entire Earth. It's not just, that what we do in America just affects America, or the United States, because there's North America, South America, Central America, but it doesn't just affect the United States, what we do here. It's affecting other places, and what other countries do as well is affecting the United States. And the more we deny that this is something that's happening, the worse it's going to get. Thinking about things as systems means looking at how every part relates to others. NASA's observing satellites collect information about how our planet's atmosphere, water, and land are changing. By looking at this information, scientists can observe how Earth's systems work together. This will help us to understand how small changes in one place can contribute to bigger changes in the Earth's global climate. So again, we have to really think about what we do as people, as ourselves, and what can we do differently to help make the world a better place. And a lot of times what you can do is you can volunteer, you can get a job in these fields, you can go out and advocate, but at the same time we need to recognize that global climate change is a real thing. The more we deny it, the more devastation is going to happen, because there are so many hurricanes, so many fires, things like that happening. And we can change that. And we can change it by making little changes in our own lives. But again, there's so much more you can do. We could advocate even during program. What things do we do at program that we could actually make a change for? Start locally, start at your house, and then start a program. And we find something out, we can start at schools. Then we can start, but it builds. But, it's up to us to actually get these things done. But again, this is science. It's not politics. Again, this has been studied over years and years and years. Like the last video said, science is not something that changes day to day. It's over a long period of time that people study it. And again, I'll go back to what Socrates said when he was asked once, what do you consider yourself a citizen of? And somebody said, "Are you a citizen of Athens, which is a city in Greece?" And he said, "No, I don't consider myself that." I said, "Do you consider yourself a citizen of Greece, which is the country that he was from?" And he said, "No, I don't consider." I said, "Well, what do you consider?" He's like, "I'm a citizen of the world." And this is way back when. Right now, we are global citizens. And it's our job to do as much as we can to help. And even if you don't believe in it, doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt to try it out, to make some changes in order to just see if it works. Helping the environment or cleaning up after ourselves or not using gas all over the place, it's something we can do, and it's not like it's a bad thing to do. Anyway, let's see. And that was me getting political. Let's focus on the science. Science says we really need to help each other out globally, and I hope we do so. So, anyway, I miss y'all. I wish we could have these classes all together. I like your input and things like that, and yeah, it would be wonderful to have you here. Okay, ciao for now.